600 feet up a mountain in eastern China, there's a wall holding back 4.5 billion gallons of water. 4.5 billion gallons, sitting on top of a mountain. On purpose. And most Americans have never heard the name of the thing that put it there. Here's what should stop you cold. This isn't a flood. It's not an accident. China built this. They pumped that water uphill on purpose. 600 feet, straight up. And they're going to do it again and again, every single day, for decades. Why would anyone haul billions of gallons up a mountain just to let it fall back down? That question is the whole game. And the answer is one of the smartest energy plays being run on Earth right now. Stick with me because what this thing actually does sounds made up. It turns a mountain into a battery the size of a small city, storing enough power to run hundreds of thousands of American homes, with no lithium, no rare earth mines, nothing but water and gravity. It shouldn't be this simple. It shouldn't work this well. And while the West is still arguing about how to store renewable energy, China just poured concrete and did it. If you like the ones where the scale genuinely breaks your brain, hit subscribe. This one's going to earn it. Let me put you where this is happening. Jiangsu Province. If you've never heard of it, that's the point. Because Jiangsu, all by itself, is richer than most countries you have heard of. We're talking about a place covering about 39,600 square miles, think Indiana and then some, packed with 85 million people. That's more people than California, Texas, and New York combined, crammed into a space smaller than a single mid-sized state. And in 2022, Jiangsu's economy hit roughly $1.83 trillion. Sit with that. One province out-earns Australia. It out-earns South Korea. If Jiangsu were its own country, it'd rank among the dozen biggest economies on the planet. It was the first province in China to blow past $20,000 in GDP per person. And in its southern cities, that number nearly doubles. Let me make that wealth concrete, because $1 trillion number is just a blur until you can walk through it. This province is second only to Guangdong in all of China. And China has a lot of provinces. Its administrative center, Nanjing, isn't some backwater. It served as the capital of the entire country multiple times across history. This is old power and new money stacked on top of each other. When a region gets this rich, two things explode: industry and agriculture. And Jiangsu has both cranked to the maximum. On the farming side, this place is a machine. It's got an enormous irrigation network feeding rice, wheat, and corn. For export, it grows cotton, soybeans, peanuts, sesame, and tea. And then there's silk, because Jiangsu is China's silk heartland, with the Lake Tai region in the south serving as the country's main silk production hub. That's a 2,000-year-old industry still humming today. On the industry side, Jiangsu sits on coal, oil, and natural gas, plus a stack of non-metal minerals: sulfur, phosphorus, marble. Remember that word, coal. We're going to come back to it because it's the villain of this whole story. Here's how the money works, and it's almost a perpetual motion machine. Industry and agriculture pull in enormous piles of cash. That cash gets poured back into growing the industry and the agriculture, which pulls in more cash. Round and round it goes, and Jiangsu just gets richer and richer. It works like a charm, but there's a catch, and it's a big one. Everything I just described, the factories, the irrigation pumps, the silk mills, the 85 million people living their modern lives, all of it runs on one thing: electricity. An absolutely staggering amount of electricity. And Jiangsu can't make enough of it on its own, so some of it gets shipped in. There's an ultra-high voltage direct current transmission line running power into Jiangsu from the Baihetan power station. And Baihetan is a monster. It's a dam-based hydro plant with an installed capacity of 16,000 megawatts. The reservoir behind it holds around 727 billion cubic feet of water, and its spillways can dump 1.5 million cubic feet per second when they open up. A giant like that generates about 60.24 billion kilowatt hours a year. So Jiangsu is literally importing electricity across hundreds of miles of the country just to keep the lights on. But here's the problem with the local power. Jiangsu has all that coal, oil, and gas, and none of it is clean, not even a little. Yes, the province built some green infrastructure. There's the Rudong wind farm, 150 megawatts, up and running since November 2012, cranking out around 375 million kilowatt hours a year and cutting CO2 emissions by a claimed 247,000 tons. That's real, and it's good, but it's a drop in the bucket. The coal and the oil aren't going anywhere, and that is where this story turns dark. Because here's the thing about Jiangsu that changes everything. It's flat, it's low, it sits right up against the coast. And that specific combination, flat, low, coastal, and crushingly crowded, makes it one of the most exposed places in all of China to a warming planet and rising seas. This isn't speculation. The province's own climate researchers tracked the data from 1961 to 2007. What they found: temperatures climbing every single decade, rainfall increasing, extreme weather getting more intense and more frequent. Put all of that together and you're looking at a threat to agriculture, water resources, transportation, and the entire coastline of one of the richest places on Earth. So look at the trap Jiangsu is standing in. It needs colossal amounts of power. The easy way to make that power is to burn coal and oil. But every ton of coal it burns helps warm the planet and raise the seas, which drown the exact flat, low, coastal province doing the burning. It's a snake eating its own tail, a $2 trillion economy pouring fuel on the fire that's coming to swallow it. That is the problem China had to solve. And the solution is sitting on that mountain. It's called the Jurong Pumped Storage Power Station. And the principle behind it is so simple it almost feels like cheating. 2 reservoirs, one up high on the mountain, one down low. When the grid has cheap, extra electricity, say, the middle of a sunny, windy afternoon when the solar panels are flooding the system with more power than anyone can use, you take that surplus power and use it to pump water uphill, from the lower pool to the upper one. You're not making energy, you're storing it, as water sitting 600 feet in the sky. Then, when everyone gets home from work, cranks the AC, turns on the stove, and demand spikes through the roof, you open the gates. That water comes screaming back down through turbines, and out the other side comes electricity, right when the grid needs it most. Think about what that actually is. A mountain that charges up when power is cheap and abundant, and discharges when power is precious and scarce. It's a battery. But instead of chemicals in a cell, it's water and gravity. It's the oldest force in the universe doing the job of the most advanced technology we've got, and it never wears out. Now let me hit you with the numbers, and I want an analogy on every single one because raw stats don't land until you can see them. The upper dam has a crest, that's the top edge running along the top, stretching about 2,650 feet. That's most of a half-mile of solid concrete, roughly 9 football fields laid end to end, holding back the sky. At full pool, that upper reservoir holds over 4.5 billion gallons, and it's not even the bigger one. The lower reservoir, sitting on Lunan Lake, holds around 5.2 billion gallons. Put those two together and you've got enough water to fill something like 15,000 Olympic swimming pools, staged, stacked, and ready to make power on command. Now the engine that moves all that water, 6 pump turbine units, single stage, vertical, mixed flow, built by Harbin Electric Group. Each one is rated at 225 megawatts. Do the math. That's a total nominal output of 1,350 megawatts. Underground, there's a hidden powerhouse, a full water supply system, and a surface switching station tying it all into the grid. And here's the payoff. Once all 6 units are spinning, Jurong will pump and generate its way to about 1.35 billion kilowatt hours a year. That's enough to power roughly 360,000 households. That's like keeping the lights on across an entire city the size of Pittsburgh, running on nothing but water going up and coming down. And in the process, it cuts CO2 and sulfur dioxide emissions by around 357,000 tons a year and burns 134,000 fewer tons of coal. And this is not a someday project. This is happening right now, in real time. China's National Development and Reform Commission approved it back in June 2016. Prep work started that December. Actual construction kicked off in April 2018, and in March 2025, the fourth of 6 units came online and started feeding the grid. The last 2 units are due before the end of this year. By the time you're watching this mountain battery is more than half switched on and already working. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, because I thought it too the first time I saw this. This is a scam of physics, right? You put electricity in to pump the water up. You get electricity out when it falls back down, so you have to lose energy somewhere in that round trip. Why not just use the power directly and skip the whole mountain? And you're right, you do lose some. No pumped storage plant on Earth gives back everything it takes in. But here's the part that makes it click. And once it clicks, you'll never unsee it. The grid's problem was never how much power. It's when. Solar screams at noon and dies at dusk. Wind blows on its own schedule, whenever it feels like it. But human demand peaks in the evening. Dinner, lights, TV, AC, long after the sun's gone down. Without storage, all that clean afternoon solar power is just wasted, spilled on the ground, thrown away, because nobody needs it at the exact second it's being made. Jurong takes that would-be wasted power and time shifts it. It grabs the surplus at noon, holds it as water on a mountain, and hands it back at 7 p.m. when it's worth 10 times as much. You're not trying to make a profit on the energy itself. You're buying the one thing the grid cannot manufacture: timing. And here's the kicker that beats every chemical battery ever made. Gravity never degrades. A lithium battery loses capacity every year and dies in a decade. This mountain will still be storing power at full strength when today's best battery is sitting in a landfill. That's the trade. And it's a genius trade. So how did they actually build this thing? Because I promise you, it was not easy. The crews weren't building on a mountain, they were building inside one. And the mountain fought them the entire way. They were dealing with karst sinkholes, fault lines, and crumbly diorite rock that wants to collapse the second you disturb it. Imagine trying to carve a cathedral inside a mountain that's partly made of hazard, in the dark, with billions of gallons of water eventually going on top of it. So they gave the mountain an MRI. They used borehole TV imaging and seismic CT scanning to find every hidden void, every weak seam, every underground trap before it could kill a worker or crack the structure. Then they locked the whole thing together. Pre-stressed anchor cables and anchor rods woven through the rock, creating a steel grid inside the mountain to hold that underground powerhouse rock solid and stable. They didn't just build in the mountain, they rebuilt the mountain from the inside out to make it safe. And they did it without wrecking the place. This is the part that quietly impresses me most. More than half the power lines for the supporting network had to run through the mountains of Nanjing and the surrounding area, and instead of just bulldozing the vegetation, they used advanced construction equipment, visual tension devices, digital cable processing tools, specifically to keep damage to the mountain flora down to a minimum. And on materials, they ran an operation so tight it's almost hard to believe. Nearly all the material for building that upper reservoir came from what they dug out right there on site. Their excavation utilization rate hit up to 99%. 99%. Almost nothing wasted. Almost nothing trucked in. They ran the entire mountain like a closed loop. Dig it out here, build it into a dam over there, waste practically nothing. That's not just cheaper, that's cleaner. That's discipline at a scale most projects never come close to. And to move all that new power where it needs to go, they laid new transmission lines and built 53 iron towers, tying the first unit into the national grid. The whole promise of that line is to lock down power supply security and push the low-carbon transformation forward across the Yangtze River Delta, one of the most economically dense regions on the entire planet. The total price tag for all of this, about 9.6 billion yuan, roughly $1.3 billion. And I want you to hold that number because we're about to see what China gets for it. For a city's worth of clean, on-demand power that keeps running for generations, $1.3 billion is a bargain. And China knows it. Let me zoom in on exactly who benefits because it makes the whole thing real. Jurong sits about 40 miles from Nanjing and 22 miles from the city of Zhenjiang, both high-energy demand areas that lean hard on the grid. Take Nanjing, the capital of the province. As of 2021, it had a population of 9,423,400 people. nearly 9.5 million. Every single one of them living a modern life that runs on electricity. And Nanjing isn't just people. It's one of China's key grain hubs. Rice, cotton, silkworms, tea, bamboo, fruits, medicinal plants, all grown for export. All of it needs water, irrigation systems, pumps, and all of that needs power. Forestry, livestock, fishing, all well developed here, all hungry for electricity. In 2019 alone, those industries pulled in a total output value of $6.5 billion, up nearly 5% from the year before. So when you ease the load on that grid with a pumped storage station and a fresh transmission line, you're not doing a favor for a spreadsheet. You're keeping 9.5 million people and a multi-billion-dollar farm economy running. But here's the twist. Jurong is not even the flagship. It's not the big one. It's not even close to the big one, because China already proved this works at a scale that makes Jurong look like a warm-up act. Meet Fengning, up in Hebei province, wrapped around the capital. When it came fully online, Fengning became the largest pumped storage power station in the entire world. Installed capacity, 3.6 gigawatts. That's nearly 3 times Jurong. Let me give you the dimensions. The structure runs about 1,350 feet long and stands 179 feet tall. But that's just the part you can see above ground. Underground is where it gets insane. The tunnels and 190 caverns carved inside that mountain run a combined length of roughly 31 miles. 31 miles of tunnel. That's like boring the length of a marathon straight through solid rock, and then adding a few more miles for fun. The reservoirs match the madness. The lower one holds up to 17 billion gallons of water, with 11 billion of that available for making power. The upper one holds around 13 billion gallons, most of it usable. Every single year, this giant swallows 8.71 terawatt-hours of electricity to pump all that water up, and it hands back 6.61 terawatt-hours right when the grid is desperate for it. And here's the detail that tells you exactly how serious China is about these machines. Fengning wasn't built for a rainy day. It was built to power the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. And in the process of building it, China blew past the Bath County plant in the United States, the facility that held the world record for the largest of its kind, before China decided that record belonged to them. Let that sink in for a second. The biggest machine of its kind on planet Earth used to be American. Bath County, Virginia, held that crown for decades. Now the crown is Chinese. And it's not a photo finish. It's a blowout. So why does China care about this so much? Why pour billions into water and gravity? To understand that, you have to understand Beijing's coal problem. And it's almost impossible to picture how big it is. The capital alone is home to around 22 million people, fold in the surrounding Hebei province, and you're looking at about 75 million souls, all needing power. And where has the bulk of that power historically come from? Burning coal. Around 40% of Beijing's energy, and the single biggest source of the nitrogen and sulfur dioxide choking the air. The raw tonnage is staggering. Back in 2011, Beijing burned 26.3 million tons of coal, most of it for heating and electricity, and neighboring Hebei, over 300 million tons in that same year. Let me put that in terms you can actually feel. 300 million tons of coal is more than the entire coal consumption of Germany. One Chinese province outburned a whole G7 country. And Hebei isn't even alone. Shandong, Shanxi, Hebei, and Inner Mongolia rank 1 through 4 in coal consumption among all Chinese provinces. This is a mountain of coal being set on fire year after year, and it had a human cost that you could see with your own eyes. In 2013, a smog event smothered Beijing and much of northern China so thick, so toxic, that it affected 600 million people. 600 million. That was the wake-up call. After that, air pollution stopped being an environmental footnote and became a full-blown economic and social crisis. And China responded. Beijing set a target to cut coal's share of its energy mix from 24% in 2012 down to 10% by 2017. The national government ordered heavily polluting vehicles off the roads between 2015 and 2017 and pushed hard to shift the whole system toward clean sources. and they started shutting the coal plants down, one by one, right in the capital. Beijing had 4 major coal-fired plants keeping the lights and heat on through brutal winters. One closed in 2014. 2 more went dark in March 2015. The last one shut its doors in 2016. You see where this is going. China looked at the problem, looked at the smog, looked at 600 million people breathing poison, and started dismantling the machine that caused it. But here's the catch, and it's the same catch as Jiangsu. You cannot just shut down your coal plants. Coal is reliable. It burns whenever you want it to. Wind and solar don't. The wind dies. The sun sets. So, if you pull the coal out from under a city of 22 million people, you need something to catch the load the instant the renewables go quiet. Something that can store clean power when it's flowing and release it the moment it's not. That's Fengning. That's the whole reason it exists. Hebei ranks 3rd in all of China for installed wind capacity at 27.3 gigawatts and 7th for solar at 21.1 gigawatts. Solar peaks in the middle of the day, exactly when Fengning can use that power to pump water up. Wind is seasonal and unpredictable, and Fengning is designed to fill in the gaps whenever it drops off. It's the giant sponge that soaks up the clean power when it's there and wrings it back out when it isn't. Without a Fengning, you can't kill the coal. With one, you finally can. And there's a piece of this most people never think about. The city itself made the problem worse over time. Between 2000 and 2009, Beijing's built-up area increased fourfold. Fourfold in 9 years. And that didn't just pump out more emissions, it literally changed the local weather. Wind speeds dropped, surface humidity fell, ground and surface temperatures climbed, all from the urbanization and the pollution. The city grew so fast and burned so much that it started cooking its own microclimate, which trapped the smog even worse. Another vicious circle, stacked right on top of the coal one. Now, I want to be straight with you here, because this is exactly where the loud, dishonest channels lie, and I won't. Pumped storage is not magic. You lose energy on every round trip. Fengning takes in 8.71 terawatt hours and gives back 6.61. That gap is real, and it's not small. These plants cost billions and take years to build. Fengning ran somewhere between roughly $1.9 and $2.6 billion, and construction started back in 2013, but the first generator didn't come online until 2019. 6 years. And here's the biggest honesty check of all. China is still burning staggering, planet-warming amounts of coal right now, today, even as it builds every one of these clean giants. The clean stuff hasn't replaced the dirty stuff. It's racing it. And the outcome of that race is not yet decided. And it's not like America is standing still or is stupid either. Bath County existed for a reason. The United States has real pumped storage capacity of its own and invented some of this technology's biggest expressions. China isn't winning this race because the West is dumb. China is winning this particular race because it made a decision the West mostly stopped making. The decision to build at enormous scale, at enormous speed, and to eat the cost and the years and the risk to do it. That's a less flattering story than China ended the game. And it's honestly scarier because it's true. It's not a fluke. It's a choice, repeated over and over. And here's the number that ties this whole thing together and shows you the scale of that choice. In 2023 alone, one single year, China commissioned 6.7 gigawatts of new hydro capacity. More than 6.2 gigawatts of that was pumped storage. Mountain batteries built in a single year, adding up to more power than most countries' entire grids. And they're not slowing down. The stated goal is to reach 120 gigawatts of total pumped storage capacity by 2030. They are not building one mountain battery. They are not building 10. They are systematically covering the country in them. So think about what that actually means the next time the wind blows across an empty American ridgeline and not a single watt of it gets stored anywhere. Somewhere in China tonight, a mountain is quietly filling with water, pulling in power the West would have thrown straight into the ground, getting ready to hand it all back the exact moment 22 million people flip on their lights. No fuel, no smoke, no mine, no emissions, just water, gravity, and a decision to build while everyone else was still debating. The clean future everyone keeps promising is coming. It's already here. It's 600 feet up a mountain in Jiangsu. and it's been running since March. So here's my question for you, and I actually want your answer. America invented the giant pumped storage plant. Bath County was the biggest in the world for years. So why did we stop building them while China turned the exact same technology into a national strategy? Was it cost, regulation, just a lack of will? Drop your take in the comments because I read every single one. And if you want to see the other machines China's quietly building, the ones that honestly should worry the West a lot more than this one does, subscribe right now, because the next one is even bigger, and it's already under construction.